The Cars universe has a simple enough premise that people of all ages can enjoy the movie. It's a normal world, but instead of having humans, all the vehicles have lives. Truth be told, it's simple, and with the power of imagination, we can avoid asking a lot of questions. That is, until we see all the constructions clearly created by humans, the designs of the cars, and well, the fact that all the vehicles have life. Because of this, all kinds of crazy theories have come out about this universe. From theories that say it's Andy playing with his toys, to others that say it was all the work of aliens. But there is something that so far has no real theories, or at least complete theories, and that is the question of how the cars in Cars are born. Are they manufactured, or are they simply immortal and cars are not really born? Or is it really all the work of aliens and those are not cars but some kind of insect that imitates car designs? Or are we over-dimensioning the fiction behind a children's movie? Are we seeing a post-apocalyptic planet Earth? In Planes, Skipper mentions that he only flew in combat once, on a Navy mission against Japanese troops. This implies that there was a Second World War in that universe, which leads us to ask a lot of questions. How could a Soviet Union run by cars even function? What was civilization like back then? We know that warships were also alive, so what else was alive? We have to start by determining if baby cars or at least children actually exist. And while we don't see any babies or anything like that, we do get to see children in Cars 3 and on Planes, so it's a proven fact that there are toddlers. In fact, in Cars 3, towards the middle of the movie, Cruz Ramirez, the co-star of the movie, tells us stories of her childhood and her school, so we know that they somehow grow up. So, since we're clear that somehow they have to make new cars, we have to set limits on how we're going to investigate this, because the Cars universe is pretty special. Unlike the other fictional universes I usually talk about, this one doesn't have logical basis for a lot of its stuff. Actually, when they created the movie, the screenwriters didn't have a complicated story in mind to explain everything or anything. It's just a universe where there are cars instead of humans, and that's it. This is not Adventure Time or Gravity Falls, and most likely they will never explain the story behind everything, but it is still a universe with an internal consistency and logic. So even if we see cars with teeth, tongues and eyes and it's completely impossible to explain, we do know that cars age, that they can love, that they have their own internal history and that they basically function as people. So, we will look for today's answer within the logic of cars, and not within the logic of our world, because there we can only come up with a bunch of stupid conspiracy theories that lead us to think of aliens or insectoid monsters, or sad theories like one comment I saw on the internet, which says that they are really just human people imagined as cars. Yes, obviously this is what Pixar did when conceptualizing the movie, but that's the worst response you can imagine, right behind saying it was all a dream or that they all actually died or something. Another popular theory I mentioned in the intro is the one that says they're actually some kind of insect or slug that uses car bodies as an exoskeleton, and to reproduce they leave their exoskeleton behind or something. Leaving aside that this is all worthy of a horror movie and Cars is a completely innocent children's movie, this makes almost no sense since we have seen on multiple occasions, especially in Cars 2, the inside of the cars. In fact, Cars 2 clears up a few things about the anatomy, if we can call it that, of the cars, which will help us a lot when defining how they are born, but we'll get to that in a moment. This is the movie that brings us closest to how cars work, as its plot is around new fuels, and in Cars 2 it is quite clear to us that they are cars. They are cars with engines we can see, with parts they can replace and oil they must use, and there is talk of engine manufacturing and original and generic parts. In fact, there are several phrases and exclamations said in the movies that bring us a little more context. At the end of the first movie, when the two minivans are lost in the desert, the lady says, "For the love of Chrysler, can't we ask for directions?" A common phrase is also thanks to the manufacturer, and in Cars 2, Mata says, "No offense to your manufacturers and models, but you guys are more trouble than my cousin Betsy when she was left at the altar." This tells us that while it's obvious that the cars must have something organic in them somewhere, there are manufacturers and models involved. I say models too, not just because of that line from Matter, or the fact that the vast majority of cars are based on different specific real-world models, but because the plot of Cars 3 is based on the fact that the new cars are more advanced than the old ones, and because of that they are faster and win more races than Lightning McQueen and his generation. Not only are they more advanced in their training, but in their manufacturing. On top of all that, Mater is an expert on models, engines, and parts and works in a parts and salvage store. All of this brings us to what I believe is the answer to today's video. The cars are manufactured, created in a factory like the cars of our world. We don't know how exactly because obviously there must be very different internal components than our cars, but all the evidence points to that. Obviously there are more things. Cars bring each other, and there is love and romantic relationships. We have, for example, Sally and McQueen or Flo and Ramon. There are also the children's cars, as we can see in Cars 3, and the whole theme of Cruz Ramirez's life. The weirdest thing is that it is very clear that there are parents in this world. Francesco has a mother and we can see her, and all the children we see are with their fathers. Because of all this, there is a theory on the internet that is quite imaginative, written by Cyrus Ramsey on Quora. In his theory, Cyrus says that various cars are manufactured with specific makes and models and then breed with each other for 2 or 3 generations. Thus Cyrus explains all the generic cars we see, such as Mater, a 1950 tow truck with design elements from different models. Cyrus goes even further, saying that they only reproduce for 2 or 3 generations because their intelligence gradually declines, taking Mater as an example. But it seems to me that this is already more on the side of fanfiction than plausible theory. We don't have a single piece of evidence that they reproduce, and instead we have plenty of evidence to support the fact that they are just manufactured. Yes, there are fathers and mothers, children, and the existence of loving relationships. But this doesn't point to some kind of reproduction. This points to a distinct society. Surely this is something very similar to what we see in the movie Robots, if you've seen it, where the robots assemble their child from purchased parts. Now, I'm not saying they put them together themselves, clearly they are made in factories, but I am saying that surely the little cars come out of their factories to live with the families that adopt them or have ordered them or something. So, the parents are not the ones who create the child, quote unquote, but they still have the role of a parent like those in our world. Now this is kind of hard to believe and maybe you need some evidence, and oddly enough, in my opinion, the strongest evidence can be found in the first movie with the bugs that appear in a few scenes and the short bugged. These are evidently bugs in the shape of a Volkswagen Beetle, and the truth, seeing them for the first time, they seem to support other crazier theories, like that actually all cars are insects. But it's a bit strange that there are these bugs along with normal bugs that we can see in Cars 1 and Cars 3. In my opinion, all that shows us that they also had to make viruses to function as bugs, which is completely expected in a society made up of cars that run on gasoline. The point of Alanol, the alternative fuel in the second movie, is to take care of the planet, which is being polluted by the indiscriminate use of regular gasoline. In a world populated only by cars, pollution would be much higher than in our world, so much of the insect population would be affected. This is why they had to manufacture viruses as insects, to avoid a massive collapse of the world's ecosystems. So I hope you liked this video, and I would like to read your opinion in the comments, especially that last part, since I don't know how you may find such a different idea of a society. Like it if you liked it, and also remember to comment on other topics that interest you. Remember that bees are friends, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.